penultimate Improved Production Tas Championship round would take place at Symmons Plains. It was now the business end of the season, with Matthew Grace having already wrapped up the Overs Championship with an incredible run of speed and consistency throughout the year. The fight for second was still on, however, with Richard Morgan holding a slim points lead from Andrew Colquhoun in a very Aussie Ford vs Holden battle. Hayden Lovell was back this round after missing round 4, and also returning in the Overs was Steve Smith in his Datsun 120Y Turbo. The car now devoid of its lime green and instead replaced with a much more smart looking gunmetal grey. Smith had also fitted a new ducktail spoiler to the 120Y to improve its handling through the long and high speed Symmons Plains sweepers. In the unders, Kyle Smith had checked over his engine from round 4's mishap and was pleasantly surprised that apart from some score marks in the top of the piston, the rest of the engine seemed okay. He was having his last run before the Nationals to iron out any bugs and try to extend his lead in the unders championship from Bennett, whose Toyota 86 was running even better now, tuned on E85. John Madigan was looking to claw back some points after a disappointing round 1. With many improved production competitors preparing for the Nationals or repairing cars, the field was a little smaller than usual, so the Soul Historic Touring Car and Soul Sports GTC car were also added to the improved production grid. In qualifying, Matthew Grace once again set the fastest lap from Steve Smith to make it a turbo Nissan Datsun front row. Next was Lovell, who edged out Morgan by just 1/10 of a second, making the second row an all-black Holden lockout. The third row was Chris Breen in the Sports GT Commodore and Andrew Colquhoun in the Thundering Falcon. Madigan was quickest under 2 litre from Bennett and Kyle Smith, whose Symmons Plains lap record holding Datsun was misfiring badly. Joining the tail end of the field was Richard Manning in his invited DGA Rent Commodore and Derek Koistra in the Group N Mini. Manning was running Sports GT but wanted to run a few more races over the weekend. Likewise was Hayden Lovell, who also cross-entered into Sports GT. Richard Morgan received a 5-second penalty for a start infraction, while Bennett and Madigan did their best to stifle Kyle Smith's progress through the field by running side by side for the first lap. Grace led home Steve Smith and Hayden Lovell, while in the unders Kyle Smith held on with his misfiring Datsun over Madigan and Bennett. For race 2, Steve Smith got a blinding start and led into the first couple of corners. He then did his best to keep Grace behind him on the opening lap. Madigan was struggling to get close enough to Bennett's Toyota 86 to have a lunge on him. However, Madigan used the recovering Smith to close up on Bennett to try and have a go at overtaking the 86. This time, Madigan had the benefit of a tow and went full send into turn 6, rounding up Bennett to slip into second place in the unders. Bennett pressured Madigan for the rest of the race, the 86 filling de Cleo's mirrors. However, Kyle Smith's misfire returned and his pace rapidly dropped off and made him vulnerable to a fast-closing Madigan and Bennett. Kyle Smith just held on to the unders win, with his rapidly closing rivals just behind, while Steve Smith recovered to 6th and would have a wall of V8s in front of him for race 3. You can catch the remaining 3 improved production races from round 5 in an upcoming video. Bye for now.